Like to run something by you and see what your opinion is. I'm not sure that I have completely formed mine yet. And the idea is, what is the foundation of what is right and wrong? And okay, so we've heard words like morality, and we've heard words like ethics, and we've heard things about natural law, and we've heard, well, this is God's will, and we've heard that this is the humanist version of what would be perfect. We've heard of social contracts. We've heard of all these different ideas of how we ought to act. How do we decide if something is good or bad? And I think that the foundation comes down to values. And I think values are subjective. So, what do I mean by that? Isn't there something like, let's say, walking up to a little kid on the street and punching him in the face? Isn't that just objectively a bad thing to do, a wrong thing to do? Well, I think it's a horrible thing to do. Then I have to be intellectually honest, and I have to ask myself, well, why do I think that? Like, well, I like kids, I have grandkids, and kids are cool. I don't think you should punch them. But then if you pushed me and you said, no, you can't take that easy way out. Really, Shepard, what is wrong with it? Like, I get that you don't prefer it, that when people do it, but what's wrong? What makes it a good or a bad thing? Well, then I'm left with just kind of making up a bunch of gobbledygook. Like I can say, well, nature tells us that natural law tells us that it's the greatest good for the greatest number if we don't do that. Well, why is the greatest good for the greatest number better than the greatest good for the minority or the mediocre good for the majority? This all comes down to subjective opinions. And I can't explain why the things that I think are good or true or whatever. I can't explain them completely. I can tell you why I think it's better not to punch children in the face. I can tell you that that's a high value of mine, is not doing that. And if I see someone doing it, that will upset me. I can say those things, but I can't tell you that it is just objectively wrong. Now, some people can tell you that they believe it's objectively wrong, but I would suggest that their foundations are not built using a system. I'll call it a system that I agree with. And the system that I use, that I agree with, is a subjective choice. It's a subjective value to use this system. My system is logic, reason, scientific methodology. That's my system. And that's what I'm willing to listen to. So if someone comes to me and says, I'm a polytheist, I believe in many gods, and all of the gods who I believe in, who I think it's just self-evident that they exist, they all say you shouldn't punch children. Well, that's not using reason or logic or scientific methodology. It's not using the reals system. It's using the feels system. And since I don't believe in the existence of one or more gods, I can't really listen to that with any seriousness. Like, oh, well, thanks for tossing out your preference, but it's just like me tossing out my preference. We're trying to have a serious discussion here. We're trying to sit at the adults table, not the kids table. We're trying to sit at the adults table and have a serious conversation. And so what is it foundationally that makes it wrong to punch a child in the face? I feel like it is, but that's a feels-based thing. That's not something that I can conclusively prove to a computer or an alien or whomever. If they weren't familiar with the things that I tend to like, what's wrong with punching a child in the face? What's wrong with, there are people out there in the world who will kill a chicken just so that they can eat it. And that's obviously appalling to some people who don't believe you should eat at KFC. You should be a vegan, they say. And they feel very passionately about this. But it's a feeling-based thing. And I'm not saying that my perspectives are any different. My feelings are feelings. And I just have these inklings. I just wish people wouldn't blah, blah, blah. Or I think you shouldn't blah, blah, blah. They're just opinions. And they're based on values. And so I think values are the foundation. Can you think of anything that goes deeper than values? Now, keep in mind, I'm not asking this as a broad question. And thank you for the comment that some of you might leave that you're going to pray for me and that I probably deep down know that there's God and Lord baby Jesus and that you're going to pray for me, that he will speak to my heart. Thanks. But I'm talking to serious thinkers at this point, like really from a serious philosophical standpoint, from a scientific standpoint. Is there a foundation that is any more foundational than values, than subjective values? Now, some of my values are kindness, and another value is not initiating violence against other people. Well, right away, if we just look at those two, and I have many things that I value, but I'm just those two. Okay, you would say, well, punching a child in the face isn't kind, and it is initiating violence. It goes against two of my subjective values. So, yeah, I can definitely say I choose not to walk up to little kids on the street and punch them in the face. That's a choice that I've made. Sorry that I'm so strong about this, but I'm not going to do that. That's my choice. But I have trouble intellectually explaining why it's good or bad, this preference I have. Now, I'll try to persuade you. And if I see you punch a little kid in the face, you initiate violence against them, I might use some violence to stop you. And that's based on a whole nother set of subjective values that I have. So again, the point isn't should we or shouldn't we punch little children in the face. That's not what this discussion is about. The discussion is about what is the foundational point for deciding what is good or bad or right or wrong. And my contention is, my assertion is that nothing is any deeper, any more foundational than values. And I look forward to your comments, and I look forward to learning more and perhaps being proven wrong.
Shepard thinks, yes he sure does. You think some things you agree with Shepard on, some and don't agree on others. Please subscribe, oh my, please subscribe and make a smart comment.